I think it's a pretty safe assumption that this movie is going to be the most polarizing one of the year. I didn't have a ton of expectations going into it. I just wanted to see a more hopeful, personable Superman who embodied the values of truth, justice, and the American way that we didn't completely get with Zack Snyder's take on the character. While there are many things that I liked about the Snyderverse, one of the things I think he did particularly well in Man of Steel was create a sense of awe around the character with beautiful visuals that fully conveyed the power of Superman and the abilities that went so far beyond those of humans. One of the ways in which he faltered, I think, was failing to integrate Clark Kent properly into the human world and focusing almost exclusively on the godlike powers of Superman while forgetting about Clark Kent almost entirely. Both of those personifications are equally important and should be given considerate screen time. What I feel that James Gunn did in this movie is go in the complete opposite direction of Snyder. His version of Superman is not invulnerable at all. He spent at least half the movie getting his rear end handed to him, and there were times where it felt a little exhausting. It didn't feel as if he was allowed to be all that super. There's a distinct lack of elevation for the character, and he needs help to win every fight that he gets into. Whether that's the Justice Gang, Mr. Terrific, or Krypto, who help him out, Superman is always on the back foot against all of these villains, and it makes the character feel, well, weak. I appreciated the fact that he never gave up when the chips were down, and his kind-hearted, personable nature from saving civilians to even squirrels during the fights, but that's kind of overshadowed by the fact that no one is really on his side in the film. He's essentially been made into an underdog, which works for a lot of characters. It just doesn't really seem to fit the personification of Superman, who is the most famous hero in the world and, quite frankly, the most idolized. Mr. Terrific and Guy Gardner got their solo moments to shine more than Superman did, it felt like, and as much as I really liked the former, this is a Superman movie, not a Mr. Terrific movie. We've seen plenty of James Gunn projects that do particularly well with multiple characters and irreverent humor. It's one of the reasons that the Guardians films were so well received. He does well with characters that are on the fringes, have something to prove, and need a reason to keep fighting. But it doesn't work nearly as well in this movie, specifically because of the shifts in tone that constantly happen throughout the film. The sincerity is not given a chance to land fully because a lot of the moments have been undercut with the same irreverent humor that was brought to the Guardians movies. Maybe it's an insecurity in the director, maybe it was written that way to deliberately subvert expectations, which I have never loved, but regardless, it does a lot to weaken the sincerity of the movie and take away from the genuine character moments. And speaking of subverting expectations, there is a character decision in this movie that focuses on Superman's biological parents, which completely blew my mind to smithereens. And the worst part was that it came on the wake of Superman saving a city of grateful civilians, only for them to immediately turn around and vilify him within less than a minute. That was probably the worst aspect of the film in my eyes, and it's never really addressed again by the end, making it either true or left up to interpretation, both of which aren't great. This character decision essentially turns Jor-El and Lara into villains, and where Superman once held them in high esteem, the end of the film sees him rectifying that perspective by choosing the family of his heart rather than the family of his blood. Superman is a movie that should not have any sort of expectation subversion. Clark is supposed to have equal reverence for both his human and Kryptonian side, and bring both aspects to his personality and values. He's ultimately the world's most powerful man, but also incredibly humble. The Snyder films did a good job of showcasing the super, but not showcasing the man, while the Gunn movie showcased the man, but not nearly enough of the super. Clark's humbleness despite his power is a result of his upbringing with Ma and Pa Kent, which we have, but not nearly enough of his own power to back it up. As a result, we aren't awed by the character or inspired by him, and both of those attributes are the two things we should feel most when we're watching a Superman movie. The most inspiring and competent person in this film was Mr. Terrific, who was by far the best part. He was the only one who had a certain degree of stoicism and aura about him that made me want to look to him when the chips were down. He also had a certain degree of nobility as well in helping Lois and not going the route that the rest of the Justice Gang took, when she came to them for help. He was the only one that seemed like a superhero, despite the few moments of his that were once more undercut by that quintessential James Gunn humor. I'd watch an entire movie about him because I know nothing about the character and I'd really like to know more. Lois Lane was another character that was actually handled quite well. She seemed to be the most fleshed out character in the movie, which isn't a great thing in terms of the Superman character, but at least she acted like a normal human woman would react in certain circumstances and wasn't insufferable at all. And she was definitely one of the better parts of the movie for me. The actors were all excellent. David Corenswet is a very charming Superman who holds to the values of compassion and caring for others that I would want him to, and whose primary goal is saving people's lives. International politics be damned. He was wholesome, big-hearted, selfless, and self-sacrificing, and at times just conflicted enough to add a bit of depth to the character without making him feel edgy or nihilistic. Nicholas Hoult as Lex Luthor is clearly doing the best he can with what he was given, but the motivations for his character do come across as being weak and flawed, and by the end of the movie, he's something of an erratic mess instead of the suave, cold, calculating businessman that I recognize from the cartoons. There might have been a chance for him and Superman to have something of a philosophical dialogue towards the end of the film that is immediately undercut by Krypto the Superdog doing Superdog things. So we never ended up getting to know what he might have said. Personally, I could have done without Krypto in the movie, but we all know that James Gunn wasn't able to crack the character of Superman until Krypto came along, and there we have it. But unfortunately, that's kind of where it ends. The movie is a mess tonally, and there are a lot of plot holes, some big and some small, but otherwise they all add up into a film that is more flash than substance, and more goofy than great. I can't really think of a single defining Superman moment in this film that made me think, ah yes, that's Superman, because there were so many characters that the movie needed to address. It was clear that James Gunn felt more comfortable with the Justice Gang than he did Superman, and I think his skills for directing a group of odd and quirky misfits might have been better served in a movie that focused exclusively on them rather than on Superman. All in all, I don't think that James Gunn was the right choice for a Superman film, despite the fact that there were some things that I liked about it. His trademark humor is better served in other movies where it is called for, rather than Superman, who was all about sincerity and earnestness. I was hoping to be blown away by something epic, because the superhero media that has come out this year has been nothing short of exhausting and disappointing. Instead, I walked out feeling no different than when I went in, and for a Superman movie, that's not good. I didn't hate the film. I thought it was just okay. And that in and of itself is disappointing, considering how much is riding on this movie for DC and James Gunn. I'm sure it'll make money, but it strikes such an odd tone into this new universe that they're trying to build that I'm not sure it'll be enough to entice people into seeing what comes after it. And whether that's James Gunn fatigue or superhero fatigue in general, only time will tell. Thanks so much for watching this video, guys. Be sure to let me know your thoughts down in the comment section, and let the conversations begin. Until next time, everyone.